On today's episode, we have Ron Ferguson. He is running for state representative in the 96th District of Ohio. He comes on and gives his take on some of the problems we are facing in Jefferson County, such as the opioid crisis and jobs. I really like what he had to say, and I love his idea of people before politics. And if you'd like to do more research on him, you can check out Ron for Rep on Facebook or ronforrep.com. Without further ado, here's Ron.
What?
Yeah, dead in my mouth.
I don't know why you're pointing at me. I didn't raise my hand.
I know your name's Gabe. Shut up.
Sure. Green, the screen ain't green, and it also ain't clean, like a green screen, but I'm clean.
You terrible rapper.
That's it. That's the intro. Fuck off.
Your slogan's like, one of the slogans you have anyway is that people over politics.
Yeah, that's just a personal thing that's always been big for me is people over politics. That's I get the question all the time, like, how did you get into politics? Why do you want to, or what? How did you become a politician, or why do you want to be a politician? I tell people I'm not a politician, and that's the exact point. And in fact, I don't even want to be a politician. What I want to do is fix these broken problems because we have too many politicians and they approach it in a different way. We need people that are going to approach it with people first,
Right.
politics second.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. That's one of my favorite things because I think that happens too often, even just with voters sometimes. I think they, no matter what, I'm voting Republican. No matter what, I'm voting Democrat. And I think, truthfully, you should be voting for whoever you think would do the best job. I also think that happens when they're trying to get bills and stuff passed. Like Mitch McConnell's been noted on saying multiple times, like anything that comes from the Democrats won't even be voted on. And I think that's crazy.
Sure thing. And not all Republicans are the same, not all Democrats.
Correct.
That's the other thing.
Correct.
There are so many varieties of Republicans, so many variety of Democrats, and then same thing with independents and third party and all that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. People are too worried about being their party and kind of forget that they're Americans. And it's all should be one team. The two sides should be able to come together, make compromise, and figure it out. But instead, just no, we're not looking at anything that the Democrats could bring forth, and on the Democrat side, we're not looking at anything that the Republicans bring forth. It's definitely both sides. It's not just one side. And to me, that's a sad display.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
Yeah. But anyway, this is Gathering of Fools, and we've got Ron Ferguson on today. He's going to be running for state representative, correct?
That's it. 96th District of Ohio.
There we go. And we just talked a little bit about your kind of personal policy, people over politics, which I think is exactly how it should be. I think you should be representing your people more than your specific party, I guess, is the way I would word it. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, you're supposed to represent the people that elected you.
Correct.
Those are the only people in Ohio. It's about 110,000 people. Those are the people's interests that you should be focused on. That's the job. Represent.
Yeah, that's it. That's literally in the name, right?
Specifically it.
I did see when I was reading some of your stuff that you talked quite a bit about some of our, I think it's gas and oil money going to Columbus instead of staying in this area, which our area is Steubenville, Ohio. Mm-hmm. How exactly does that work?
So it's many different kinds of money. It's everything that is taken out of this area that goes to Columbus and then is kind of recycled and distributed there across the state rather than being kept here locally. Something that restored a lot of local money that I worked on recently was a criminal justice reform thing, actually. And what that did was people's appointed counsel or public defenders, when which is your Sixth Amendment right, when somebody would have that counsel appointed to them, then the county was supposed to pay 50% of that bill. The state was supposed to pay 50% of that bill. However, the state wasn't holding up their end of the bargain. They were only paying about 42%. And when they don't pay their end, then your local counties had to pay it. So
they're forced to.
Our county commissioners had to pick up the rest of the bill. And that's about another 8% of money they didn't plan to pay. And now we have it in line to where the state is paying their fair share. That money's staying in our local coffers, and our people, and we're better off here locally for it.
And what was the state's excuse for not keeping up their end of the bargain?
I mean, I don't think they had an official excuse, but the point is, when the money gets to Columbus, the last place they want it is in your local municipalities. They want it for their state budgets to do their state things.
Right.
And being at the state level, they just have a little bit more power. It's not supposed to be that way. That's what we're trying to get back in line. We're supposed to get a little bit more home rule.
Okay. Yeah, because that just seems crazy to me. We're getting all this money from gas and oil. It's going there, and then we're not seeing apparently a decent share of it, because that's one thing everybody was focused on when they were saying, yeah, let's bring in the gas and oil. We'll be bringing money to the area. And in some ways, I suppose it still is, because people are making money from it and spending it here, but you still would like to see that money come here.
Yeah, and it's an industry that is still early on in its development. It's something that we need to capitalize on a lot more. It's a major resource that's right here in the eastern part of Ohio. I've talked to a lot of people where either recently Harrison, Jefferson, Belmont, Monroe, those counties, Carroll, those counties were the counties being drilled the most, or they're on the docket to be drilled the most. And so we want that opportunity. We want those jobs, and not just those jobs, but we're talking about a cracker plant in Dilly's Bottom down in Belmont County. That's part of my district.
Yeah.
And we want that cracker plant. We want all the subsidiary industries and opportunities for employment to come from that. We have an opportunity to really bounce back and thrive in this area, and but it's not going to happen on its own. It's a major part of that is having the right people in office that have the Valley's interest at heart.
Yeah, well, I even tell people more recently, the more research and stuff I do, that you really need to be more focused. I mean, presidential elections important, don't get me wrong, but you need to be more focused on your local elections, because those are the people that are going to be more focused on you.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And you, like you said, this area has a chance to thrive again, and I'm always curious why it seems like Weirton over there is thriving. Like, you see new businesses coming in all the time, and for some reason that's not happening in Steubenville. I don't know if you have any ideas about that.
There's a bunch of reasons for it. I don't know that you can pinpoint one. I know that.
Let's even just go through a couple of them then, just because
sure.
I think a lot of people have that question.
Yeah, geographically, it's nice to be sitting right there on Route 22, the major corridor that's kind of running its way up to Robinson and then to Pittsburgh. So
That's
it's a
true.
little bit geographically stronger. Of course, if you're coming from Pittsburgh, it's closer than Steubenville.
Yeah.
So all that geography really helps them. Just talking to business owners, I know that, and, I'm a small business owner, but I don't have a business in Steubenville. I know that folks that have tried to set up shop in Weirton, they've had an easier job getting it done than they have in Steubenville. And Steubenville's a great place. I want to see more businesses come over to Steubenville. And so doing what we can to create that business-friendly climate.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I've kind of heard it too. I actually want to see if I can get that guy, what's his name, Nelson?
Mm-hmm, Mark, yeah.
Yeah, I want to see if I can get him to come on to talk about some of his struggles, because I know he's bought quite a few places downtown, and he's turned some of them into really nice establishments. And then I hear about him getting hassled because some of the places he built, he's not doing it as fast enough for them. But to me, it's like, well, let's give the guy a break. He's brought some nice businesses to Steubenville, and the downtown probably hasn't had a nice new business before him in who knows how long.
Yeah, he'd be great. I'll tell you another thing he could really hit on. I've been listening to him on the radio and on TV and things. He's had talking about the landfill that's trying to come in here to Jefferson County, and he's very knowledgeable on that.
Is he? Yeah, because I do think people need to pay attention to that as well and make sure that does not happen. I mean, if I can't imagine anybody in this area being on board with it, to be honest. I mean, you have to assume and know that there's going to be a smell around your house at all times if you have a landfill right here. And what's crazy to me is that guy lives in Steubenville, like on the border of Wintersville, and he still wants to put one in right here. That's just crazy to me. There goes everybody's land property value, huh?
Yeah, there's I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I know that from what I heard Mark say on the radio on Sunday, that the company that wants to come in had a landfill in the western part of Ohio, and they were facing a bunch of different violations, and they don't have those taken care of.
Yeah.
So why are you going to let somebody open up something new when they're in prior violation or bad status in another place in our own state?
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. He definitely did have a bunch of violations that, as far as I know, did not get fixed. a well-run landfill, I still think would be a bad idea. And there's no reason to expect this to be a well-run landfill. It's probably going to be poorly run like the last one and have the same issues. That's just a nightmare. I'll probably try to move if if a landfill ends up right over here in these woods, right next to my house. So you're running for state representative. Do you have any kind of mission that you're going in there with, or any policy that you're going in there with to try to make some of the changes that you're talking about and keeping the money in the more localized areas?
Again, there's a lot of opportunity to do it. I think the more important thing, absolute most important thing, is our energy portfolio here in the state of Ohio. We come from an area with a very rich coal background. We need to protect our coal industry. Coal is still one of the most efficient, most reliable, most cost-effective ways to produce energy, but then we have gas and oil.
Yeah.
And we need to capitalize on this new ability that we have right here locally to extract things like natural gas and use that for energy.
I think a lot of people are misguided in exactly how many things coal is used for as well. Like, it's not just like electric plants and stuff like that. I was talking, my friend Chris Rose, he's a coal mine engineer.
I know Chris.
Oh, you know Chris? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he was talking to me, and he was telling me about all the different things that coals go through. I can't remember them all off the top of my head. We might have been having a few beers, but to me it was crazy, and it lets me know that the coal industry may dwindle down, and obviously we see some going bankrupt, but I don't think it'll ever really go away. I actually even heard recently that that the batteries used in electric cars still require coal inside the battery. I don't know how true that is, but to me that was mind-blowing.
And one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is part of the reason why coal companies are going bankrupt and such is because our tax dollars, the money that we all work for, is being taken from us and used to subsidize things like wind and solar.
Yeah.
And at no point should public money that you and I work for, that men and women of the Ohio Valley work for, should that money be taken and given to a private business, whether it be solar, wind, or anything else.
Yeah.
So coal doesn't need help. Gas doesn't need help. They just need a level playing field. They'll win on their own merits.
Yeah. I can say from the readings that I've done, wind isn't even very efficient. Mm-hmm. Solar and electric, what you said is perfect, because Tesla, their cars are actually only as cheap as they are because of the subsidization they get from the government.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't for that, they would be completely out of everybody's price range, except for the wealthy. But your blue-collar people wouldn't be able to ever afford a Tesla, because I think the cheapest model right now is like $30,000 or $40,000, which isn't too bad for a luxury car.
But and how is it fair to the state of Ohio, where we build cars, for instance, Ford, here in the state of Ohio, and we have to send our Ohio money to subsidize a private business? It's at no point is that ever fair.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I definitely think that's a massive problem. I know it's because they're saying, oh, it's a cleaner energy source and we need to make changes to our energy, but still, if the company isn't feasible on its own to make it, then it shouldn't be subsidized. I mean, if you're getting mad about the banks getting bailed out, then you should also be upset about this.
And things like wind, actually, a great book, Moral Case for Fossil Fuels by Alex Epstein. I encourage people to read that. But you can't just look at the production. So a lot of people try to say that wind is cleaner than coal is because, well, the windmill spins and that's all there is to it. And you see these emissions, minimal emissions from coal. However, you have to take into account the rare earth mineral mining that they need to do in order to build the windmills in the first place. So actually, wind is a lot more damaging to the environment because of what they have to do to build the windmills. That has to be taken into account. And that's done in a lot of other countries, like over in Asia, where the regulations aren't nearly what they are here in the States.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And the windmill, it's just, one, unpredictable. I mean, if you don't have wind, you're not getting your power source. And from what I understand, just not nearly as efficient. It does seem like coal is probably the most efficient. I like the idea of people going solar and going towards electric, but I don't think it's feasible financially for electric and solar to replace coal. I don't.
And as time goes on, people will continue to innovate, and nuclear is another option, hydroelectric in certain parts. I mean, you go up to Niagara Falls, when you have a natural falls like that, that's how they produce most of their energy, is through their through the falls.
Oh, really?
Well, that's great for them because it's
right there.
It's right there and it's great. Yeah, so use it.
Right. That's awesome. But we don't have that luxury where we're at, unless we can somehow like harness like tornado or something. There was something else I wanted to hit, and it's passing through. Oh, the other thing. So you're talking about subsidiaries. What kills me, I think, is as un-American as it gets, is companies like Amazon and those not having to pay anything in corporate taxes. They literally pay more in corporate taxes in foreign countries than they do in the United States. Mm-hmm. So to me, what that is they invest more money in foreign countries than they invest in the United States, their home operation, because all that money goes towards infrastructure, right? That just seems crazy to me.
Yeah. One of the big things that people heard a lot with the Amazon headquarters that was basically being bidded on by cities all across the country was they all wanted to give them, well, we'll give you this much of a tax break to come to our area. We'll give you this much of a tax break come to our area. Well, the problem is you give them the ability to come in, and then people wonder how Amazon keeps getting further and further ahead of other businesses because they're getting breaks that other businesses are not. And at no point is it fair to allow business A, in this case Amazon, to pay no taxes while every other business has to pay their taxes. That's just not fair.
And it doesn't really make sense for the area either, because those jobs will be taken away because they're going to stick around there for as long as they get the tax break. And then when the tax break goes away, because I'm sure it's typically, they'll say for 5 years or 10 years, you get the tax break. Once that tax break is done, they're going to go take that business to the next place that's going to give them the tax break. I don't think those are sustainable jobs.
Yeah, you just have at all points you just have to be fair across the board.
Yeah.
And if you make your area, we were just talking about Steubenville and Weirton, same thing here with big companies. Make your area a better place to do business. Make it easy to open a business. Make it so that everything's fair and they have an even level playing field. They'll come because it's just easy and efficient, and
right.
They want to do it. You don't have to try to buy them in with all these other things.
Yeah, you don't. And the only ones that are truly going to take advantage of that, it seems like, are the major corporations, because they're the only ones being offered those things. Mm-hmm. Which
and corporate welfare, we talked about people over politics. That's a great one where sometimes you'll have many Republicans and many Democrats agree that corporate welfare is a bad thing. We should not be bailing out and subsidizing these big corporations. Yeah. But you also have a lot of Republicans and a lot of Democrats that are for it. So it's one of those bipartisan issues, both for and against.
Yeah.
And but I really appreciate the people that are willing to stand against corporate welfare because it's just bad for America.
Yeah, I completely agree. To me, like I said, it's just mind-blowing to me that they pay more in taxes in foreign countries than they do in America. Like you don't want to invest in the country that you live in and started your business in. That's just crazy to me. I really feel like it's just the least American thing that you can do. Another thing that always pops up in people's radar when it comes to politics and voting is minimum wage. Mm-hmm. And I'll let you know my stance first. I'm not for a $15 minimum wage across the board. I think it has effects on economy that people don't realize. And I know from what I read I read one study that says it doesn't cause inflation, it doesn't cause job loss, but then pretty much every other study I read shows that it does and will continue to. So what are your thoughts on?
So I think minimum wage is a red herring argument. I believe that while you have people arguing for and against whether we should raise the minimum wage or not, I don't care if the minimum wage is $5, $15, or $50. At the end of the day, that's the minimum, and I don't want anybody to be working for just the minimum. I want better for people.
Right.
So what can we do to make it so that the market is providing jobs that are beyond the minimum wage on their own merits, because businesses are thriving. Yeah. And that's all the more reason why we need to make sure that things like the gas and oil industry are taken care of the right way here in this area. They're given the ability to thrive, because then here locally, places are going to actually be paying far beyond the minimum wage by choice, not because of government decree.
Correct. And I completely agree with you. I think we just need more jobs, more better paying jobs. And I think people should have to earn those jobs. I don't think just because you're content working at a fast food restaurant or whatever other minimum wage job, just because you're content doing that for the rest of your life means we should automatically pay you more. That's kind of my thing. I think you need to have some sort of drive.
And many fast food places, in a lot of places, they pay minimum wage. But in a lot of places that are thriving, they pay a lot more than minimum wage because they can't get people to work there because it's a supply and demand thing. There's more jobs than there are people. And in that case, they have to incentivize you to come work for them.
Yeah.
So I was reading an article, and it's been a couple years now, but in North Dakota, they were paying $20 an hour at McDonald's.
Oh, that's crazy.
And the reason why they were paying that is because they needed to serve that area and they couldn't find workers. That's the kind of area I want here in the Ohio Valley where there's so many jobs that every place just pays more, not because they're forced, because they have to basically by the market forces.
Yeah, dude. I feel like sometimes part of not being able to find employees is that some people just really don't want to work. I mean, in that situation, it sounds like they have more jobs than they have people or whatever. But I feel that's one of my big arguments is people, just because you pay them more money, if they didn't want to work in the first place, they're still not going to be great employees now. That's just how that works. But that's what I would love to see in Ohio, where our economy is booming so much you have to pay people more money. That's the dream.
Yeah, no doubt.
I love people always in that argument. They always bring up McDonald's as their CEO makes this much money. You never hear Burger King. You never hear Taco Bell. I think it's a lot of people don't realize McDonald's business model because they don't just make money from the fast food portion of it. They're also a real estate company. So their CEO is making money from the fast food portion and the real estate side of the business as well. So it's not really a fair comparison, and I think it's also why you never hear anybody talk about Burger King or Taco Bell.
Something you hear a lot in the McDonald's realm, too, that you don't hear so much in the other fast food places are people that started out working in the McDonald's. They moved up to a manager, and they've even become an owner of their McDonald's. They have a great upward mobility track in McDonald's, and I think that's pretty great. Yeah,
I completely agree. I think that's another thing people don't understand. If the guy that's working at McDonald's for minimum wage wants to move up within the company and works hard, he will. You know, that's how it's supposed to work. You work hard and get what you put in. I mean, that's what we teach. That's what we've been teaching kids forever, right? You're going to get whatever work you put in is what you're going to get back. And in any company, if you do well, they're going to try to move you up the ladder, keep you there, and keep you happy. And if they see potential in you, then they're going to try to take advantage of that potential. Mm-hmm. So if you're having a hard time moving up the chain in McDonald's or wherever, take a look inside and see what you want for yourself and how much work you're willing to put in to get yourself to another level. That's the way I feel about it.
Sure thing. Yeah, and since we're here talking a lot about the state representative race and about politics and things like that, one of the most important things to me is whether you're making minimum wage or you're the middle management or you're the business owner. If you live in this district, you're going to get equal representation.
Yeah.
I'm not there to represent any one person more than another. I'm there to represent everybody. And so that's the really important thing. I think that people that are out there in the working class need to really know is anybody that's in the working class, I'm going to be your best candidate because I'm going to make sure that there's more jobs and that those jobs are paying better.
Yeah.
Not because I have a magic wand. I don't. Right. But because I'm going to make sure that the opportunity for business to come here and be successful exists. And so there's more opportunities. And so that not only do people in this area have an opportunity to get a job, but they also have an opportunity to even choose the job. There's going to be more choices.
Yeah, and I think that's key. I just put in notice at my current job, and I don't have anything lined up. So I'm on the job hunt, and I'm noticing most of the jobs that I see are actually in the Pittsburgh area. There are very few in this immediate area that kind of pay where I need to be in order to pay the bills that I have established over my time.
Yeah, sure thing.
So that makes all the sense to me. I would love to see more jobs. And then again, I don't really know. I haven't really looked too much into the gas and oil field either. I should probably look more into that because there's probably some of those jobs right here, pretty local.
It's growing.
Yeah. So what, besides looking for the jobs and stuff like that, actually, that's what I wanted to touch on. You always saying, people before politics, and what you just said there, you're going to be going for every class working, whether they're business owners or whether they're just job seekers. And it just made me think of an old joke by Robin Williams, how he said that politicians should be wearing a coat that has like all their sponsors on there, like NASCAR.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's funny.
And one thing I've noticed from what I've read about you and even talked to other people about you is there doesn't really need to be that concern with you. And that's what makes me think that you're kind of a great candidate for any area, but in particular this area.
Yep. It takes money to run campaigns, especially good campaigns. So I go out there and I raise money like everybody else. And by all means, go on Ron4Rep or Ron4Ohio.com. I have both of those, so Ron4Ohio.com. And please donate. I would very much appreciate it. But the big thing there is when I receive a donation from somebody, before I even accept the donation, I tell people on the front end, here's the things that I'm working to do. If we can have a mutually beneficial relationship where here are the fair things I'm trying to do for my area and you support them, I'd really appreciate it if you invested in the race because it's going to be better for both of us.
Yeah.
At no point does any money get you any kind of additional help, favors, or anything else. That's just not going to happen. I love the job that I do right now. I told you before we started that I'm going to be leaving my job in June. It's a very bittersweet thing for me because I love it that much.
Yeah.
But I'm walking away from it not because I need this other job. I'm walking away from it because I want to see a better Ohio Valley going forward. We're going into 2020. I want to see us, and it's such a great place in 2022, 2025, 2020, 2030, and beyond.
Yeah, well, and you've been involved in. I've working for Vicelli's. I've actually like catered a few things for you. You used to have this little building space down here, and it seemed like you guys were always trying to do something to improve the area. Mm-hmm. So you've been living that even without being in politics so far. So to me, it just makes sense that people listen to your message and believe what you're saying because you've been doing that without being involved in politics right now.
Yeah, we did a really great thing in our local area where we stopped an income tax in the city of Steubenville to make sure that more of the hard-earned money that you're working for stays in your pocket. The last thing we should be doing is raising income taxes on folks because there's plenty of money in the government right now for them to pay their bills. They don't need to come looking to us for more money. We need to make sure that money stays in your pocket.
Yeah, I give the perfect example because most government, I used to be in the Air Force, and it seems like most government budgeting is based on use it or lose it. So if you don't use the amount of the budget that you had this fiscal year, then you lose the difference the following year. So when I was in the Air Force, I was stationed in McGuire Air Force Base, New Jersey. I refueled planes in the air, so I was part of the 32nd Air Refueling Squadron. There were 2 air refueling squadrons. There's smaller squadrons on the base because there's just not that many people that do flying jobs. Well, when it came towards the end of the year and they had to use their budget or lose some of it, next thing you know, every closet in that place was filled with these huge plasma TVs where this is when plasma TVs cost probably like $5,000, because this was years back.
Sure.
So I'm not kidding. There must have been 40 or 50 of these TVs just sitting in closets because they didn't want to lose the budget.
Yeah.
So when people tell me that the military needs more funding so that the troops can get more money for themselves, it just blows my mind. I'm like, you don't even understand. Like if you go raid through the any squadron's closet or any platoon's closets in their base, you're going to find stuff that they've never used, that they spent a ton of money on just so they didn't lose their budget.
Yeah. There's you talked about the military. Military is something obviously on the federal level, but more on the state and local level. Mm-hmm. You talk about some more people that defend us, which are our firefighters.
Correct.
And our law enforcement officers and our EMS folks. And while we need to be lowering our state budget and tightening things up and putting more money back in people's pockets, that's one place where we can actually expand those budgets. We should at all times, our law enforcement, our firefighters, our EMS should have what they need to do to keep us safe.
Yeah.
And to keep themselves safe, because those people have families that they need to get home to. I have a lot of family and close friends that are in all 3 of those professions, and we need to make sure that it's well funded.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think I don't really know firefighters and EMS pay rates, but I do think cops, especially starting out, are underpaid. I mean, it's a risky job that can have, life altering consequences and high stress. And when they first start out, I mean, I make more than what a cop makes when he first starts out, and I run a pizza shop. You know what I mean? That seems crazy to me.
Yeah, like I said, we need to make sure that they're well funded, and the big thing is not funded because we go looking for more tax dollars.
Right.
Well funded because we take the waste from other parts of government.
Correct.
And we funnel it to something that actually is meaningful and matters to us, which is, of course, our first responders.
Right, because I fully believe there's probably a decent amount of waste in those budgets.
You just gave me examples of some waste. Yeah. Can't we funnel some of this waste? Right. Part of it back to the taxpayer so that we have more money to pay our bills, and then some to the people like the first responders that are out there keeping us safe.
Just sit down and go through the books. I'm a big movie buff, and there's a silly movie that I love very much. It's called Dave, and it's got Kevin Kline, and he's like a body double for the president. And when the president ends up dying, but they're trying to keep it hush-hush, so he's playing the president basically. And he ends up doing great things by just sitting down and with his accountant friend and just going through the books and rearranging where the allotments of money go. And they just change everything, and it's great. It's a funny movie, but I love that aspect of it, especially knowing what I know. Like, we could reallot this and make everything run way smoother. And we don't have to keep tossing more money to things like the military. They have so much money.
That kind of led me into another thought that I have, which in that same vein of people over politics, something that I plan to do that I haven't heard very many people do in the past is we get so many, legislators get so many bills, and if I were a legislator, I would as well, get so many bills in front of me that affect many different people. Rather than just making a decision or waiting on people to come to you, I want to actually have a group of people in kind of each profession field for me to be able to go out and reach out to them and ask, how is this going to affect you? So if it's a first responder thing, let me have a couple firefighters, police officers, EMS people from around our area that I can contact and say, here's the bill. How do you think this is going to change your everyday life? If it's something like education, maybe a couple parents, a couple administrators, a couple teachers. Yeah. How is this going to change the education realm for families, for teachers, so on? And each thing down the line, again, if it's going to be an energy bill, coal, gas, oil, all those people, so that I can ask people that live it every day.
Right.
And healthcare, another good example. How's this going to affect nurses? How will it affect doctors, pharmacists?
Yeah.
So that I make sure that I have the best amount of information so I can make the best decision and, most importantly, represent people.
Yeah. You know what's crazy about that?
What's that?
Is it makes sense. To me, that is the logical way to handle those things. When you notice a bill affects a certain category of people, talk to those people. I mean, how can you better truly represent the people than doing that?
I'll tell you how it happens most often. For most politicians, for most legislators, they see a bill. The first person that talks to them about that bill is some special interest group in Washington or in Columbus.
Yeah.
And that group comes and says, hey, do this bill for us. This is really going to help out for this reason. And they don't give you all the details.
No.
Well,
they're not lying. They're just leaving stuff out.
Yeah. And special interest groups in Washington and special interest groups in Columbus, they aren't voting. The people voting are here locally. The job is to represent people locally. So the people I want to hear talk about the bill are people locally.
Yeah, and that makes more sense than what you hear from most people. I think part of the problem in politics, that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, actually, because I wanted to give any politician that will come on or politician hopeful that wants to come on, I'll always give a platform to, no matter what side they're from. I don't care. Sure. I think it's good for people to have a chance to, in a longer format, speak to their values and things like that. Because the way, again, this is more of a national level, but to me, it's a perfect example. Like the debates are a joke. You can't get across your point in a couple of minutes that you then get cut off, and more than likely the whole time you're being interrupted by the candidate on the other side of you. For the perfect example of that is Bernie Sanders. I see him on the debates. I know what he goes and stands for, but I didn't really know what his real plan was until I heard him on the Joe Rogan Experience, and he sat down and he talked for an hour without somebody trying to argue with him or interrupt him and only getting a minute or two on the subject of the question that they asked him.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one of the reasons I want to have you on. I'll have anybody on. I think it's good for people to know the people that they're voting on. Truly know them, not just little sound bites.
Yep, long form is the best way to go. Podcast now, you pop it in while you're driving, or in my case, I travel a lot for work via plane, so I download and listen to a lot of them on the plane. So
yeah, this is just, we're gonna get into some random things here, but how worried about you or about the future of jobs and stuff like that with the fear of automation?
I'm not afraid at all. The more we can automate, the better. And the reason why is because the things that we automate more often are jobs that people do, but they maybe aren't the jobs that really fulfill them or drive them. And kind of what you've seen through the course of human history is the more machinery and automation and things that have happened, the more that people have been able to expand out and do things that they truly enjoy. Yeah. So you think about farming. Think about how many people it took to run a farm at one time.
Oh, yeah.
And then you create all this great machinery that the farmers are able to use. And those that truly love farming still farm. We have some of those great farmers right here in our area.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that just did it because it needed done to put food on the table, now they were able to go out and do a lot of other things and innovate. And you look around and you see things like a TV, or you see these toys. I mean, a toy maker.
Yeah.
Whoever made these toys, at one time there wasn't time to be making toys.
Right.
Now you can make Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you can make a kid's life experience that much better. So automation's a great thing, and I'm confident that people are going to have a lot of great jobs they want to do, great paying jobs, despite how much automation we have.
To me, that almost sounds, it's not, because it's not what you're saying at all, but it sounds similar to the argument for like a universal basic income. Mm-hmm. Because you give people just what they need to survive, and regardless of what people think, you don't need a TV and things to survive, but you need roof and food. So I think the number that I've heard more recently is like $16,000 a year just for your basic needs. And then it allows you to not take a job because you need this certain job to pay for your house and to pay for this and to pay for that. Now you can take a job that you love, because anything you make on top of that money is going to be from whatever job you work.
Sure thing.
Yeah. And I think that cuts out maybe even some of the problems with, oh, wow. Not goodwill. Wow, why can't I think of the term? I'm just going completely brain dead.
Charity?
Not charity. I like charity. But
sure.
When people don't make enough money, they have a family, and they go on, it's
different kinds of assistance.
Government subsidies, yeah.
Sure.
I can't think of welfare, stuff like that. That's what I mean. I think it would help with that in general,
That's
too.
the concept of a UBI. It's something that I know a lot of people are researching a lot more, and there's various ideas. Some people think that it should be in addition to welfare. Some people say let's have a UBI so we can eliminate all other welfare programs, because it'll just come through one thing. And then, of course, you have the people that aren't for it at all. It's not really something that I've ever looked into too much. I've heard people talk about it. But again, a lot of our problems come from government, and government has these great ideas. We're going to do this thing, and they make things worse. And we need more people making those decisions, which is, again, what I'm trying to do, and why I'm asking people to please get involved. And if anybody listens to this, if you're a first responder, if you're a teacher, if you're an attorney or a doctor or a coal miner or work in the gas and oil field, if you're any of these people that have knowledge, I mean, you have a lot more knowledge on your field than I ever will have.
Yeah.
And I'm asking you to please share that with me, because I want to be informed so I can make good decisions for that you help be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I think when you say a lot of problems come from the government, I think part of that is them not being informed enough, and them not having a real solid plan to roll things out when they do them. Mm-hmm. I think one of the perfect examples is actually medical marijuana in Ohio, actually in California too. It's ended up blowing up in their face, but they don't have a proper plan or the right infrastructure set up ahead of time, and they're just like, well, no, let's just roll it out and start collecting these tax dollars.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that is part of the problem when you go through when the government does mess some things up. I think that's a big part of the problem. They just kind of rush things and get them out there and try to fix them as they go. I could be wrong, but That's kind of what I see, especially medical marijuana in California and now in Ohio, because I had Pachella on and he was talking to me about that. And
yeah, Mike's a good guy.
Another
friend of mine.
Yeah.
He's a great guy, and he cares about this area. That's why he does what he does. We have that in common. We just care so much about this area. It's why we continue to reinvest and put ourselves into here. But that kind of brings up the thought to me. So you mentioned marijuana. Now, something that is actually really been an issue here in the local area has been the opioid crisis. And we have so many people that have lost their life, families that have been torn apart by it, and that's something that needs addressed.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
It's not government that's going to have that solution. It's only people that are going to have that solution. So what can we do to get these people help?
Yeah.
And there's a big difference as people are starting to learn between users and between those that are selling. And we need to address them differently. I know here in Jefferson County, we now have a drug court, which is fantastic. It really, Judge Michelle Miller is the person that runs the drug court. She has a lot of great people on her staff that are helping do that stuff and work in that realm and getting a lot of positive outcomes. And we need to make sure that we're coming at it from a positive approach and focusing on the heavy penalties for people that are doing things like lacing fentanyl into drugs and things like that, because those are the people out there that have bad intentions and are trying to do harm.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I'm very big on trying to help the opioid crisis any way possible. I actually have a guy coming on in February that does a lot of work in that field. But so when you say the drug courts and you say they understand the difference between the people selling it and the people using it, are they hopefully focusing the big penalties on the dealers and not the users? The users should hopefully more get help if possible.
That's how it should be.
Yeah.
We aren't there right now. We've gotten better at addressing it differently. You can't, when somebody has an addiction, you can't punish them out of an addiction.
No, it's not going to work.
You have to utilize rehabilitation.
Right.
That's the only method to get somebody off, versus if somebody's not a user and they're a seller, especially a seller that is specifically has this intent to do harm and to get people hooked.
Yeah.
Those people can and should be punished.
I completely agree. The problem with punishing the user is your goal ultimately should be to rehabilitate them.
Absolutely.
Because they're not out here trying to downgrade society. They made some stupid choices in their life. They got addicted to something. And the more you put on their record, the harder that rehabilitation is going to be for them.
No doubt.
It'll be harder for them to get a job. It'll be harder just in so many different ways.
Yep.
So when you're like, well, we're just going to punish these addicts and then they'll clean up their act. You just keep taking them further down what looks like a hopeless road.
Yeah. The big things that you see for people that recover are the ability to get a job,
Yeah.
the ability to get a house, the ability to somehow get involved with their community, whether it be through a church or through fitness or through some other hobby, or basically a support thing that keeps them away from that habit where they can go and do something productive that they care about.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to work on more, and that's not government getting involved. That's government allowing communities to take the lead on those kind of things, community and business and other things.
Yeah, I'm actually huge on community. I don't know if you ever read that book right there. It's called Tribe.
Nope.
It's written by a former Navy SEAL, and it talks very much about how the loss of community causes, because we have that big time now,
Sure.
Especially with social media and stuff like that. You have more contact with people on your social media than you do just in your regular community. So I always use the example, when I was growing up, we knew all of our neighbors. Now there's people that never even talk to the person that lives right next door to them.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that's crazy. But yeah, I think community is huge in that. I think community needs to get behind things like that. And that is exactly what's going to solve the opioid crisis, is people having a good understanding of what's happening, understanding that this crisis can hit anybody at any time. Like, you think, well, my family's not like that, and these people are just pieces of shit that are, wasting everybody's tax dollars. Like, well, no, man, something happened in their life, things went bad. Half the time, these people got legitimate pills from a doctor and then got addicted to them. And we had a few problems here where doctors were handing out way too many of those prescriptions.
Absolutely.
It's been scaled back now, but man, there for a while there were people just handing them out like candy.
Yeah, my doctor actually, and I won't put her name out there. She's a great doctor.
Yeah.
I should ask her if I could use her name in the future. But I will tell you that she doesn't prescribe opioids at all.
Oh, really?
She tells you on the front end when you first come to her, under no circumstance will I prescribe opioids, regardless of the case. It's just not what I do.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
So that's not, and there is a place for extreme pain and other things
Correct.
to utilize them.
Yeah.
She's just not going to walk down that path. Her basic thing is, if you're in that situation, there's some other doctors. We need to get you specialists and such. We need to get you connected with.
Yeah.
And they need to make that call.
Well, exactly. When you're in those things with severe pain and stuff like that, you are probably spending some time in a hospital and things like that, and those doctors can then prescribe that. You're right. Maybe a family doctor should never prescribe those kind of narcotics. That makes sense.
And that's a good example of, I think the responsibility comes on that doctor. I wouldn't tell them what they can and can't do. My belief is, if you're a doctor, they take the Hippocratic Oath. You're there to help people. So I want you to be able to do the maximum things you can do to help people.
Yeah.
And so let them doctor by doctor make that call.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I really like that idea.
Sure, for her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. I like it. And I said, well, I'm just here because I read a lot of great reviews, and you're a great doctor, so that's why I'm here. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I might ask you what her name is off air, because that's really cool. I wouldn't even mind talking to her about making that decision, because I'm sure that was not an easy decision to come by. Even just for a business in general. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but doctors do they get some kind of money from the pharmaceutical company?
I don't know the answer to that one.
Yeah.
I'm sure there has to be some kind of correlation there.
Yeah.
But that's probably something you should investigate a little bit more.
I was just thinking about that, because I always thought about it. I don't know why I haven't read up on it enough, because why else would the doctors be prescribing them so much when they were back in the day? Those doctors that were basically just like pill farms.
Yep.
Why else would you do it if you didn't have some kind of kickback from it? I doubt any of them were just like, oh, I just want to destroy this area.
No, that's I'm sure that's not it. But in overall, in general, this as we said, the opioid crisis is something that needs fixed. It's something that can be fixed. We need to put those people in position to succeed, both the users and those people, whether it be judges or counselors or other folks around them, to kind of have the tools necessary to have a productive outcome.
And I think one of the things I had a guy come on, and I have to redo the podcast with him, but he was an addict. Mm-hmm. Well, still an addict, obviously. Sure. They say you're always in recovery. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But he couldn't get clean with what was available to him here. He kept trying. He'd been to 3 different rehabs. He had taken all the different, at one point it's Suboxone now, but at one point it was methadone and all these different things. And he found a treatment using ibogaine, which is a root with extremely hallucinogenic properties. So I wish I had the numbers right in front of me, but so Suboxone has somewhere around an 8% success rate at a year's time. So once they go back to these people after a year's time, about 8% have been good for that whole year. While this ibogaine treatment, from the studies that have been done, it's either 25 or 50. Either way, both those numbers are way higher than 8. And that's just for the first year. But what Suboxone does is it kind of goes back in the centers in your brain for addiction. It kind of resets those, not permanently, but it gives you anywhere, for some people it's like 2 months, for some people it's 6 months, but it gives you that time to figure out how to operate your life without having those cravings or those addictions. Also negates the oh man, why can't I think of words today? When you get sick and everything because you're trying to get off of the drug that you're addicted to, the withdrawal symptoms. Jesus. So it also negates the withdrawal symptoms. So it gives you time, a window where you're not going to be thinking about it. And if you want to get clean, it's really going to help you get there, because you don't have to worry about that. But if you don't want to be clean, that 2-month to 6 month window still isn't going to do you any good, because as soon as you stop thinking about it, then you're just going to go right back to what you were doing. You got to change all your stuff up.
A friend of mine, Matthew Charles, he came here. He spoke at the Herald Star Speaker Series back in the fall, but he was the first man released under the federal First Step Act, which was a great bipartisan bill. Over 90 senators signed it, and the President Trump, signed it into law. Great bipartisan bill.
Explain that bill real quick.
So I'm not an expert on every last nuance
Right.
of it.
Just get the generality.
Yeah, so there were a lot of things that it addressed, and it allows for some different reclassifications of drugs, changed some mandatory minimum laws and some other things.
Yeah.
And Matthew Charles was the first man that was released under the First Step Act. And so he was talking to me when he was here in the fall, and he was talking about a guy that was in prison. He was in there for 10 years. He was addicted to something. I don't recall what it was. And but anyway, he had this addiction. The addiction never got treated during the 10 years he was behind bars. So when his time was up, they let him go. He got in his transportation from prison to the halfway house he was going to be staying at. He had the transportation drop him off, and before he got even to the halfway house, he hadn't even been out for a day. It was the day that he got out of prison. Before he ever got to the halfway house, he was high. He stopped and immediately got a fix, because they never addressed the underlying problem, which is an addiction, and it needs fixed. And so that's where we need to be focusing on.
And it seems like it shouldn't be too hard to get some kind of meetings or whatever in prison. You know, I'm sure people will sign up for them, even if it's just to get time out of their cell. But even if that's the only reason they're doing it, it might end up helping them anyway. Yeah. So why not set up those programs? But, you know, also prisons are big business. So
yeah, the three things that I constantly, when I'm reading, the things that I see that really help, like I said, is when people have meaningful work. Yeah. And then they either get involved with a faith group, a charity, or into like kind of a fitness type thing. Yeah. Because it just feels like they're being productive, and it's helpful to it really heals their mind as well.
For some of my friends, I've definitely seen faith and fitness be huge. Mm-hmm. And one thing I do, I'm not overly religious, but one thing I do really like about the faith aspect is all the people in recovery I know that do have a big part in faith, they are so helping of anybody that's willing to try to change their lives and get off opioids. I mean, they just call me. Mm-hmm. We'll sit down, we'll have coffee, we'll figure out how to help you out any way we can. Yep. And I know people that have sent people to, I don't know, it's apparently like a different kind of rehab in PA somewhere that has worked for quite a few people in this area, actually. Mm-hmm. Because we know a lot of the same people that are in recovery. And I think the people that we know, I think they have a really good support system too. And I think people need to understand that if you do want help in this area, there are great support systems here with great people in them that will sit down and talk to you anytime.
And the last point I always like to make people is even on the financial aspect of things. So if you spend money to incarcerate somebody, which is money that us taxpayers have to pay, and you don't do anything to address the underlying problem, when the person gets out and they use again, they're going back to jail. Yeah. And it's going to fall on us, the taxpayer, again, to pay for them to be incarcerated. Where if when they're when they first offend, if we spend money on actual rehabilitation to fix that underlying problem, it lets the taxpayers off of a major burden of continually to pay for somebody. And not only that, but that person then becomes a productive member of society, and they get a job and they pay taxes and they commit to their community and they do all these things. And it's just a positive all the way around. And that's what people have to start really learning.
And I think a big focus on that subject is it has to come from the community too. Because as much as I said they should be able to have meetings and stuff in prison, that's not going to happen. So many prisons are privatized now, and they're not really looking to rehabilitate people most of the time. They're looking, when people come in here, that's how all these people get paid. That's how these people have jobs. So they're arresting people for dime bags of marijuana and trying to keep them there for 2 years. So it is the community. The community is what will help make that change in the opioid crisis. I fully 100% believe that. Stop looking at them as lower class citizens, looking at them as somebody who has a problem that they need help with.
Mm-hmm. And let's make sure that more, sons and fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters, our daughters, not lost. And and we got to start eliminating some of these tragedies.
Yeah, and don't be scared to have conversations with your kids. Have conversations with your kids. If you find out somebody, one of their friends or something is doing drugs, don't avoid a conversation. Have a conversation with them, because it happens quick if they start going down that road, because it's highly addictive, both physically and mentally.
So, what are other things? I mean, you live here locally. You're a citizen. What are the things that are really hot button issues on your
Yeah, well, we definitely touched the opioid crisis. That's really I'm trying to get a lot of people in recovery and different things on the podcast to talk about that, and jobs, obviously, which we also talked about. Like I said, I just put in my notice, and it is hard for me to find a job in this area. I have to look into the gas and oil, but there's just not a lot of businesses here that are offering a decent wage. It's probably why I've been in the food industry and managing restaurants for so long, because we do have Applebee's and Texas Roadhouse and things like that, but I'm a little sick of that career field. Also, until I started talking to you, I didn't understand the fact that we were losing a lot of money to Columbus and it being redistributed to other areas.
Yeah.
I think people think when you bring in these taxes, you just keep that money, but apparently that's not how it works.
Here's one of the problems is, there's 99 state representatives in the state of Ohio, and so they are broken up into geographic areas, and all of them represent about the same amount of people, 99 equally sized districts. The problem is when you have a county like Franklin County, where Columbus is, they have multiple representatives for just the Columbus area. I don't know how many, but let's say there's 6 to 10 people in the Columbus area that are state representatives.
Is that because of the population?
Population, exactly. Okay. So Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, the 3 big C's are like that. And then on a second level, you kind of have Toledo, Dayton, those places. But in our area, Belmont, Monroe, Jefferson County, I would represent 3 counties. So I'm representing 3 counties. Meanwhile, other counties have 6, 7, 8, 9 people representing them. So that fight in Columbus is that much harder for rural areas like ours to make that case.
Because you have less people arguing for you.
Exactly. But we're going to get it done. We're going to make sure that we are getting our fair share, regardless of the amount of representation. And that's why I also want to make sure that once if I get elected and I get to go to Columbus, I want to take people from our area, people that are willing to go with me, because one of the best things you can do is go testify.
Yeah.
And we need to be louder, and we should be louder. And, before I was in the field that I'm in right now, I was a television reporter for 5 years.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And so 3 of those years were WTOV in Steubenville. Mm-hmm. And we need to use the power of the media in a positive way, and we need to leverage our complaints and make sure that we're getting productive outcomes.
Yeah, I definitely think we need to be louder. It makes me curious because, like you said, they have more people arguing for them. If the smaller population areas should try to get on the same page with a lot of things in order to kind of equal out that playing field.
Yeah,
to me, that kind of makes sense. But who knows how hard that is to get everybody on the same page. I'm sure it's near impossible.
That's okay. We just need a loud fighter in Columbus. Yeah. And I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm sure you would be. I don't think you would bite your tongue. I think you'd go out there and fight to the death for your constituents.
Yep. We have term limits in the state of Ohio, so the longest you can serve is 8 years.
Okay.
So whether it's 2 years or whether it's 8 years, when my time's done, this is my home. This is where I'm coming back to.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm going to be for what I plan to be the rest of my life. And so the thing that's more important to me is that the people that I consider family and friends in this area can look at me and say, you you were there for us.
Yeah.
That's the only driving force for me.
And actually, talking about this is your home and reinvesting in this area, your family actually, as a whole, reinvest in this area big time. And one thing I'm happy to see, because another thing with the opioid crisis, or people just, I'd say even say in general, partying too much in this area. I'm one of them, but I think we have, like the Applebee's here in town.
Sure.
They have the highest alcohol sales out of like any Applebee's.
Really?
Yeah. Is lack of things to do. And I think one thing that I think it's you and your family are doing right now is putting in that entertainment center.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
fun.
Have you guys got a name for it yet?
We don't have a name yet. You can go on Facebook. It is Unnamed Steubenville Entertainment Center on Facebook. It has a page. You can jump in the contest. I'm sure we'll come up with a deadline soon. We don't quite have one name yet. However, it's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of really cool things. We were just in Orlando, Florida at a show where we were kind of picking out the attractions and such, and we were looking at even a couple rides. Yeah. And then we're going to have miniature golf and laser tag and a huge arcade. A lot of games for you to play there. Then we're going to have a sports bar and grill, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah,
and
for
so
sure.
it's going to be an all-ages thing, and I think that's what people have kind of said. Is it going to be a family place, or is it going to be more for adults? And it's going to be for all of the above, because we're going to specifically have things that are for the kids, and we're going to specifically have things that are for adults.
And I think that's very important. I don't think it needs to be just one or the other. I think having it be both is perfect, because there's almost nothing for people to do in this town besides go to a restaurant or go to a bar. There's no entertainment. Hell, we don't even have a bowling alley anymore. You know, we used to have a bowling alley. Soon.
There's going to be one soon. Maybe I might have just said one of the things is going to be there.
And that's awesome. I think that is actually huge. Now, what part of the mall is it actually going to be in?
In the old Sears building. So it's about 130,000 square feet between the two levels.
Okay.
And so it'll be first and second floor there in the Sears building. And it's scheduled to open up in the spring, so we're working hard on that right now. And when like I said, with the age category, it's going to have a sports bar and grill.
Yeah.
And we haven't designed it yet, but I'm working very hard to specifically design it so the bar and the grill, while they're in the same establishment, are kind of in different spots.
Yeah.
So that you have an older crowd in the bar area and you have families in your grill area.
Yeah. You can almost just have like I don't know if floating wall is the right term, but just kind of a wall that separates it a little bit. Yeah. Actually, the Applebee's in Wheeling is kind of set up like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's a good idea. I'm really excited for that. I really am. I just think this area has needed something like that for so long. You had to have heard the complaints. It's constant. There's nothing to do in this area. There's nothing to do. We have to go to Pittsburgh. We have to do this. Well, now this is going to be a great thing that they don't even have in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's going to be a one-stop shop that you can come out. Like I said, I don't even know if I mentioned a second ago, but it's going to have an indoor go-kart track. That's going to be really cool too.
Yeah, that is cool.
So there's going to just whatever it is that you're really looking in, that's your kind of entertainment or fun. We're even looking at possibly where a couple of the things that are on the horizon, and you're the first person to kind of hear of this, is escape rooms and also batting cages. Now, those two are not guaranteed. The other things I said are guaranteed. These two we are just kind of looking at right now to see if we can fit them in there. And because people that do escape rooms may not possibly be your arcade or your bowler. Same thing with the batting cages.
I love the idea of an escape room. I think that's something that'd be really fun for people, especially during certain holidays, like say Halloween, you know. And I love the idea of batting cage. I can't remember the last time I saw a batting cage.
Yeah. And the ones that we're looking at are actually in a game format. So have you ever been to Top Golf?
No, but I know what it is.
Okay, so Top Golf basically took a driving range experience where, unless you were a golfer, you had no interest going to a driving range. They added a game format kind of to make it a lot more like bowling. This is the same idea with the batting cages we're looking at. So it's not just going to be for your baseball and your softball players. It's going to be people of all ages, to where you can actually play a game, whether it's home run derby or it's cool. Like a 9-inning game where you have a couple teams and you can do anywhere from 1-on-1 to 9v9. So just like a real baseball game, or even 10v10 if you're trying to simulate softball.
But that's awesome. I'm using air quotes here, but I would love to play in a real home run derby.
Yeah, it's great. The balls are great. They the machines that we're looking at, they throw like curveball sliders.
Oh, really?
And you can set it on just fastballs if you want just right down the middle and you're playing a simple home run derby.
Yeah.
But when you're playing the games, then you can even choose the pitches so that you kind of compete with one another.
That's really cool. That's awesome. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
And I honestly, it's got to be a little bit risky too for you guys.
Taking it on.
Yeah.
I mean, with any new business, there's risk.
Right.
People always hear the famous statistic: 9 out of 10 businesses fail.
Yeah.
But my parents have been successful business owners, and I think sometimes why businesses often fail is because you don't have a driving force for why you do what you do.
Yeah. I can agree with that.
Loving this area, caring about this area, wanting people to have something to do is a driving force that I think sets the business up for success. And that's why we're asking for feedback from people, because we want it to be a place that it makes it easy. If people want to go have a night out, they don't have to go to Pittsburgh. They can very simply say, we're going to go to this place in Steubenville, and we're going to have a great night out.
Yeah, and honestly, sometimes it sucks driving all the way to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Especially if you are trying to do some stuff with your kids as well. You got to drag the whole family for an hour car ride and an hour back. Nightmare.
I have plans for this New Year's, but I'm hoping that next year that's where my New Year's is. So watch the ball drop right there in this place and have a big function around it, because we don't have enough opportunities of things to do on New Year's.
Yeah, I agree. Especially in this area, almost any holiday. Even on Halloween, I went on the Carpelati boat.
Yeah,
and it was a great time. But it seemed like more people should have been trying to get on that boat. It's very cost effective. It's for charity. It's something fun to do. Yeah. It's something fun to do, and people are always complaining about not having things to do. And while there was a good turnout, I was like, man, there should be more people on this boat.
Yeah, I really wanted to be there. I missed out. My little cousin in New Jersey had a football game. He was a senior this year, so I tried to make it to a lot of his games. And
that's cool.
So I missed out, but people should try to go next year, because it's a great event and it's for a great cause.
Yeah, and it does. I think a lot of people get worried about spending too much money in this area, because people are fighting for jobs in this area, as we've stated. But it's actually pretty cost effective. I mean, with your ticket price included, you get an open bar and a nice spread of food. So to me, it was 100% worth it. I had a great time. There were great costumes. There was a cool little costume contest, and it was a great time. I really enjoyed it. It's the first time I've ever been on one of those boats too.
And on the job front, we're estimating about 200 hires at this new place. So
yes,
see a lot of jobs coming into the area, and a nice little centrally located place for people to do, and hopefully something fun. Because when we're hiring, the number one thing that, and this kind of gives people a hint for when you're applying, the number one thing is, I want you to work there because you get enjoyment of basically seeing people have fun. It's supposed to be a fun place. The job should be fun too. Have a good time. Everybody should be having a good time.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then maybe, kids in the area will stop hanging out at Walmart and hang out there.
Yeah. I mean, and you know what? Walmart's right there, so they can bounce back and forth.
Yeah, if they feel like they need to go hang out at Walmart. Yeah. It just always is so weird to me, hanging out at Walmart. But, kids got to find something to do.
The mall's getting smaller and smaller. I when I was young, I just would walk the mall, go to the arcade for a little bit, go to a movie, and the mall just continues to shrink.
Is it a local person that owns the mall now?
I'm not sure, actually.
Yeah, because I heard part of the issue with that was how much they charge for space at the mall.
Because the Sears building, is actually independent from the mall, so it's connected.
That's good. Yeah,
but our family owns that building.
Oh, that's great.
So no matter whatever happens to the mall, that building is still going to be there.
Do you guys own the tire center too? Then did you?
No.
Oh no.
Nope, still for sale.
Still for sale. I always thought that would be a really cool bar, actually.
Sure.
Like a craft beer bar. The bar actually being in the garage area during the summer. You can just open up the garage door.
Maybe that's where you go from here. I know you're looking for a job. You could be your opportunity to invest. There's probably going to be a lot of clientele soon in that area.
Right.
You're going to get traffic, natural traffic.
Yeah, it's a great spot for natural traffic. It has all the parking you could possibly want. That's one of the reasons I always thought it would be a good spot once it closed. Yeah. Maybe I'll find some investors. All right. Well, you got anything else, brother?
No, man. I think that's really it. I just want to really plug one more time, ron4ohio.com, also ron4rep.com. So it's RONFORREP. I'm on Twitter with that. I'm on Facebook with that. That's also my Gmail, ron4rep@gmail.com. Reach out, share your ideas. Again, if you're a profession or if you're a parent or anything and you think that there's bills that come up that you would like to have an extra level of say-so, kind of like lend your expertise, I'm here. I would really be glad for you to kind of do that. That's what I'm going to be doing, actually. I guess, that's the one thing I kind of want to tell people as we're parting here is right now in these first few months of 2020, my plan is to really get out and get a lot of those groups together so that I have these kind of expertise type groups with local folks. And then when April hits and the weather breaks after the primary in March is when I'm really going to be out and knocking a lot of doors. And so I plan to knock myself personally on over 30,000 doors, which is more doors than what's even in the district.
Yeah.
And so if you're a voter, I'm going to be knocking on your door. I'm going to hopefully get an opportunity to talk to you in person. And then also volunteers are going to be out there, and I hope we double that number with the volunteers. So we're looking at 60,000 doors that we're going to be knocking in the course of this campaign, and that's because grassroots is where it's at. I don't want just an informal or in passing opportunity to meet people out in public where we can't really have a conversation. I want to have an opportunity to meet you on your doorstep where it's just you and I, and you can tell me the things that truly matter to you so that I can best be in position to represent you.
Yeah, and I think that is huge. Like we said, there's sometimes those little 2-minute conversations just aren't enough to get a feel for the person that is hopefully going to represent you. Yeah. I will say that I will definitely be voting for you, and I think people should be taking advantage of the things that you said. Like you just gave out your email and all that. You want to talk to people, so people take advantage of that because you can really get a feel for who Ron is.
Yep, and before, please, if I don't have your vote already, I want to earn it. Give me that opportunity to earn it, please.
Yeah, I can't ask for more than that. Just a conversation and see how it goes, right?
Thanks, man. I appreciate the time.
No problem. I appreciate you coming, man. This is the Gathering of Fools. We're out. I think that was good, man. Did you have fun doing it?
Yeah, always have fun talking and conversating. It's a blast. The down, maybe in the